With the weekly close coming soon, Bitcoin may be getting ready for some volatility, and I just want to point out a few things in the charts which could be pointing towards the upside. And due to popular demand, I will also be taking a look at the Matic charts. And if that sounds good to you guys, smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and with that, let's get it. Just going to start things off here by taking another look at this trend line that I'd been pointing out in my last few videos, saying that although it may not be all too significant because we've only really tested it a few times in Bitcoin's history, the fact that it dates back all the way to 2011 I found interesting, so I wanted to see how a couple candles respected it, and you can see that so far we have not broke that line, and although it's not really getting an aggressive bounce at this point, support is support until it's broken. And not just the fact that it is this trend line dating way back, but also how it lines up with my green box here, which was our previous market cycle all-time high, where we did get a little bit of consolidation on the weekly chart. Really the only consolidation we got in our parabolic run in our last bull market here. So it's very interesting to see that that line is matching up quite beautifully with my green box here. Not only that, if I go from our previous market cycle, the bottom of the bear market cycle, to our current bull market top around 69,000, you can see that we are also getting that 786 Fibonacci confluence as well, which is basically exactly where we have bottomed out so far. And another thing to go along with this, you guys, that I want to point out, which you may have noticed before, is the RSI, how oversold it got on the weekly chart, and how this has really caused the price to act with Bitcoin in the past. I have marked out with these vertical dotted lines where our RSI got oversold and where it's happened previously on this chart, and you can see that these are the exact bottoms of our bear market. So the fact that we are starting to test these RSI levels right in all this confluence that I've been talking about, there's a lot of things going for this chart that I think we could actually be getting ready for quite a bullish move. Not only that, but as I was mentioning, watching these weekly closes in this area, the fact that we got this little bit of an attempt off this green box to get a bounce, but then we just ended up closing the next weekly candle red. The fact that this never gained any momentum in such a bearish, sentimental market situation, everyone's so bearish in this market, and the fact that we got another direct red close after that attempt at a bounce, the fact that we never just dropped this box and this line and just absolutely capitulated is a good sign in my opinion. I do think that if we drop this box, which would also be dropping the 786 Fibonacci line as I mentioned, it would also be this upward sloping support line that I've been talking about in my last few videos. If we drop all this confluence here, I think it would make a lot of sense that we do drop all the way back down to 10K, because that would just complete our typical Bitcoin bear market cycle of approximately an 85% sell-off, which is what Bitcoin has typically done in previous bear markets. It doesn't have to happen that way, but it is something to watch for. As well, this level has been respected in the past, got a little bit of support. You can see that we're respecting it as resistance in that general area. It just is a level of interest, getting near that $10,000 even number. Obviously, people would probably look to front run that a little bit, so that may be why it would be slightly over 10K. But on top of that, another reason for that level, in my opinion, would be just that if I go from our bear market bottom once again to our bull market high, that would be where our next Fibonacci line is right there, which would be our 886 fib. So that, in my opinion, is a very interesting level to watch if we do end up dropping and capitulating very quickly. But so far, I don't know, this looks good to me. The fact that we never dumped right through all that, and we do have all that support, potential support there, I should say. Yes, absolutely, the more we test it, the weaker it'll get, and it could absolutely dump to the downside. But the fact is that support is support until it's not. So we're going to have to see what the price does at these levels. This has been my logarithmic chart. Just going to hop over to my regular chart here just to see more normal price action, I suppose. Once again, we're just getting these weekly closes right along my green support box, dating back to my previous cycle all-time high, which I already talked about. I would not be too surprised to see us close this green candle here and begin to drop down. And people are going to be very quick to think that we're flipping bearish right after the weekly close if it happens quickly. But I think we might end up just testing even just the top of this box. Maybe we'll dump into this green box a little more. You know what? Maybe we completely dump through it. But in my opinion, I think that it's looking like we might just get a retest down of this box before we start trading a little bit higher and getting some sort of a bounce. I mean, we don't necessarily have to find support here. One thing that is trouble, in my opinion, is if we bring up the 200-week moving average. This is a little bit scary because Bitcoin has never spent this much time below this moving average, and you can see that we are perfectly respecting it as resistance right now. I don't know what will happen to Bitcoin if we do start respecting that as resistance and getting a harsh rejection off those levels. I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks, just the fact that we're not getting that dump here, I'm hoping this has just been a bit of a fake out and our next weekly candle or two end up getting back above that 200-week moving average. We start closing back above this moving average, I think things could get quite bullish very quickly. But that being said, that's not necessarily the case. Something to consider if I go back to my logarithmic chart here and just zoom out and go back to those vertical green lines here. It did take a while, even though Bitcoin did bottom at those levels. I mean, it took a while until we started getting back into an actual bull market. I mean, here we have close to 50 weeks. We got 44, 45 weeks before we started setting higher highs. Same with back in our 2018 bear market bottom. After we got that oversold territory and found our bottom, it did take, well, about 16, 17 weeks before we started getting some serious bullish action happening. So even though I am definitely open to considering that this could be the bottom, I don't think we necessarily just have to blow up, absolutely crushing all-time highs and just moonshotting. Finding a bottom doesn't necessarily mean moonshot right away, but we're going to have to see how that plays out. Something else I wanted to bring up on my weekly chart here, I'll just get rid of my 200-week moving average, is this handy dandy MDX algo scalping indicator here. You can see that it called the top of this market fairly nicely. I mean, obviously not the very top, but it did get some quite bearish moves after giving that short signal on the weekly chart. And although it hasn't flipped to a long yet, it is suggesting taking profits around these levels. So that's interesting that it lines up quite nicely with a perfect resistance to support flip if we were to get it there. So something to consider. One other thing I want to go over just for you guys is this Matic chart. This is, well, Matic since reaching its all-time high to where we are now, I mean, or where we bottomed out, you can see it got about a 90% correction, which is really, in the altcoin market, nothing to be too alarmed about. That just happens in bear markets, so nothing too out of the ordinary there. These bubbles are explosive, but they pop very aggressively as well. And one thing that's interesting is where we are consolidating right now and finding support, or at least trying to find support for now in this green box I have outlined, is this really is the majority of our consolidation, just forming a bit of structure in the chart before it went absolutely parabolic there. It was already having a very nice bullish move there, don't get me wrong, but before it got absolutely stupid parabolic, this was kind of the trade range that it had. So it would make a lot of sense that we are starting to find a little bit of respect for this area here. Not only that, but if I go from our previous market cycle bottom to our market cycle top here, you can see that Matic actually dropped all the way down to its 886 Fibonacci line, and so far has respected that as a nice bounce. It's still yet to get back above the 786 and continue climbing through from there. But that's interesting that we have that little bit of confluence there to go with my potential support box. One other thing that I want to talk about with Matic, I'm just going to delete this green box for now, is the potential of a nice bullish pattern here. If I were to just map this out, I'm seeing the possibilities of quite a nice ascending triangle. And these are generally a bullish pattern. They like to break to the upside. So the longer we consolidate, the better. Generally, these patterns like to break out at about 2/3 of the way through or so. If we could get a break above these levels and then respect that resistance as support, I think Matic could get a very juicy climb to the upside here. Generally, these patterns would typically like to get a measured move, where I like to measure the entire pattern here, and then I like to put it to about wherever we're going to get a breakout from this. So let's just say we do break out right from the top here. Let's see, just the percentage move on that would be approximately 50%, or from where we're at right now, if it did get that full break, you're looking at about a 60% move to the upside. So Matic is potentially setting up for some juicy moves in the market. But again, I think mostly this all relies on what happens with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is going to dump through this support box and drop my 786 fib line, the altcoin market could take a pretty substantial dump to the downside, let's just say. But if Bitcoin is going to find some nice support and start rallying, I think that the altcoins could be set up for some very juicy market conditions. So anyways, guys, obviously none of this has been financial advice. Always do your own research and form your own opinions. But if you appreciated my take on what's going on in the markets, please do me a favor and smash up that like button. And again, subscribe if you want more of these market updates of mine. With that, stay safe, my friends. Peace.